What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, the official podcast of MetalNexus.net. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Terry, and with me, as always, is Mr. Jonathan Beatty. How are you doing this evening?
I am hung the fuck over. I went a little too hard hanging with the Crowbot and He Is Legend and the Damn Things guys last night here in town. But it actually, I think, it was a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time talking with Joe from Fall Out Boy / the Damn Things, and we might actually have him being a guest on here soon.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was a night of drinking. I realized why I think I was so hungover, and it was because I had shots of Jaeger, I did Jaeger bombs. I had tequila, I had whiskey, I don't think I did vodka, because that's not really a drink I do, and then just, a shitload of PBRs.
Yeah, all I know is that I was on my way to work this morning, and I sent you a text, and I was all like, I had something about the podcast or whatever, and you were like, yeah, I think I'm still drunk.
To be fair, I think that might have been 4 hours after I left the bar.
Yeah.
And had taken basically a 4-hour nap.
Yeah, I had slept a full night and was going out to kill it at work bright and early. So yeah, that's just kind of indicative of the differences in lifestyle at times.
I think it determines your death style.
That's right. Oh my God, that's a deep cut.
I have a shitty snare tone just to match how I felt all day.
Bang, 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 bang.
Oh God, that's how my headache felt like Lars' snare tone.
Well, speaking of not bad snare tones, I did an interview with a band that I actually just discovered that a lot of you probably will just discover through this podcast, and they are called The Wolves Are Closing In. They're a band that I they just kind of fell into my lap as far as I was just searching on my Google Music app, and they had a brand new release, and I listened to it and really, really, really enjoyed it. Reached out to the band, was like, hey, let's do an interview. They were like, okay. So we got together and did a quick little chat. And I kind of like doing interviews like these because it's a band nobody's heard of, so I get to ask like a lot of really generic questions because no one has yet.
Right.
You kind of get into that headspace and find out, what exactly their inspiration was, what they're going for, what their future plans are. We cover a lot of that stuff in the interview, but what I enjoy about doing this kind of stuff is just getting the ability to kind of maybe be part of something that I think is probably going to get much bigger soon. So that was kind of my interest in these guys that, I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to start hearing their name here pretty soon.
I think the thing that was surprising to me, because leading up to this, you were asking me if I could make this work, and I was like, unfortunately not. I'm going to be at a show, and there was plans to actually get some interviews done earlier that day. It was interesting in listening back to this, just kind of remembering the initial conversation we were having about, are you free at this time on this day, and check out this band, and then you being like, I just found out, like I remember you sending me the message like, I just found out that they haven't even played a show yet, and like how shocked you were. And I think that it's something we've kind of talked about, and actually sort of permeated into the conversation I did yesterday with Andrew from Serpents again when he was here in town. And we were talking about, with Andrew being from Oceano and starting a new band that basically is an independent, unsigned band, we were talking about the things that you kind of have to do. Like, he doesn't skimp out on merch designs or things of that nature, and kind of talking about how maybe you're not able to do something currently, but that doesn't mean you take the shortcut just to get some success and to be able to do the thing. And I really kind of realized that there were a lot of parallels between what I was talking to with Andrew about that and your interview with these guys, because it was just a thing of like, everyone's kind of at that same point right now where it's like, how do we traverse being a band in the digital age? Like, do we focus on playing a shitload? And you kind of had made the comment, and I thought it was pretty, hadn't really thought about it, in the fact that you were saying, nowadays a local band doesn't even have to be local to the area. They can just go somewhere else and play, as long as they can kind of grind and get going. And I hadn't really thought about that, because typically I think you and I are of the age that we remember you got to start locally, then you build out, then you build out, then you build out, and maybe you're within a 3-hour radius of your hometown, and that's kind of your area for a while. And so to think of the fact that it's like, here's a band that, kind of did it the opposite way, where it's like, hey, we want to have a really great sounding record and we want to have all these things in place before we start playing. I almost think that's a better starting point than just being, here's a band, we have no music, we have nothing, we're playing just to get out there. And it almost seems like a detriment, kind of, because it's like, oh, you're a great band, do you have anything? No.
Well, yeah, and I think the interesting thing about this band was that they kind of had a plan in place beforehand. Whenever we got done doing the interview, I was talking to my wife about it, and she always asked me how the interviews are going and stuff like that. And I was like, it's kind of genius that you start off with a really good sounding record. Like that's number one. I mean, how many bands' first releases really sound very good? Like a lot of the time, it's like, well, we recorded it on a 4-track recorder, or we are still trying to figure out how to use GarageBand,
Right.
or whatever it is. And so you start off with a record that people can buy immediately. If they go to a show, they can hear your band play, they can hit you up on your socials, and they can immediately be connected to your Bandcamp or whatever it is to buy your stuff, or they could just stream your stuff right off of their app. So like you've already got that in place, and then to have a video on top of it, it's one of those things that I feel like this gives them the opportunity to enter the show scene with something to offer already. Versus a lot of bands that are just like, oh, we got to get our first show going, and they only have like 4 songs for their set list. It's like 4 songs and 2 covers. I think that's the rule.
Yeah, something like that.
So I thought it was kind of cool that they had all this original content, and they had been working on it for like 2 years before they actually kind of launched everything. And so it's interesting, and it's going to be cool to see how it all pans out.
Do you feel like that's actually something differently, though, that might kind of bite them in the ass, like where they have so much stuff ready to go, but unfortunately, see, I just don't know. Like, I feel like obviously the proficiency is there; they've learned how to play these songs. But my worry would be, it's almost the exact same thing. Like when you are a local band and you work on those first 4 or 5 songs and they're so well rehearsed, and this is something you guys have talked about on discography discussion quite a bit, which is, these songs are so tired and true, and the band knows they work because they've played them so many times. They know them inside and out, and that's why they are as great as they sound, even if the production and all that isn't necessarily the greatest. However, a lot of times you see a thing where by the time you see a band, it's that thing I always say where it's like, I go see a band, they sound great. I go buy their record. I'm so pumped to hear these songs that I fell in love with seeing them for the first time. And then what happens? It's none of those songs I heard, because you know what? Man, we've been playing those songs for 4 years now, or we've had those for 2 years. Like, we're over it. We want to start writing the new stuff. And I just wonder if maybe, like, if it's taken them that long to write all this material and get everything and get all the ducks in a row, if potentially the same thing is going to be happening, where they're already looking at writing the new stuff and have another follow up, and that maybe might have the same effect, where it's like, okay, here the songs are playing. Oh, is that on that EP? Hell no, it ain't on that. We haven't recorded any of that yet. And you're like, well, fuck, I don't. Kind of already over the thing that you've had now for 2 years, even though it's new to everybody because it's the first thing you've put out. But I don't know. It just kind of makes me wonder if there is a downside to it on that level too.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it in those terms. I think there's something to be said about putting your best foot forward and just kind of hitting it at a professional level. And I think that they're in a position now, really, because it's like they've got a release. They could like buy onto a tour if they wanted to. You know what I mean? It's like that sort of stuff. Is all a viable option. And I think that I feel like in this day and age, it's almost time wasted building a local fan base in your hometown if your hometown sucks. Because like that's something that I dealt with for years trying to play in local bands here in St. Louis. We weren't a hardcore town. We were not a metal town or a metalcore town or any of that stuff. So what was the point in trying to establish a local fan base there? I mean, like, sure, we had some fans, but it was like pulling teeth in order to get people to come to the shows. Whereas in a case like this, we were doing all that with nothing to offer. Whereas, with The Wolves Are Closing In, you have a band that can immediately play a full set list of original material and can do it because if you listen to the way the album sounds, yeah, it's pretty obvious that they know all these songs inside out to the point of maybe exhaustion. So I think in that regard, I think that these guys could just skip a lot of those annoying steps.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Speaking of interesting, though, I do kind of want to mention, kind of speaking of nostalgia and a lot of stuff we've kind of been hitting on. Want to give a shout out to everybody for picking up the Acacia Strain episode. Holy shit!
Yeah, man, that thing blew up like an atomic bomb.
Boy, did it!
The comments were pretty brutal, but at the same time, like, this is one of the very first times I've seen. Because, like, normally, like, let's say we have Phil Labonte on and he says something about whatever. You go online and a whole bunch of keyboard warriors are like, whatever, his band, should be heavier than they are, or whatever it is, This one was interesting in that you still had that, like, you still had the keyboard warriors or whatever, but like, every 2 or 3 comments, there'd be somebody being like, yeah, but it's like totally right? Like, despite how you may feel about that band, despite how you may feel about that vocalist, what he said is balls on accurate.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that a lot of the news sites like the PRP and Metal Sucks and Metal Injection and so forth, a lot of them even were like, I think it was Metal Injection that made the comment. They're like, Ed, we can't really disagree with anything he's saying.
I couldn't. And I kind of, whenever I was listening to that interview, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder anyway, because I was complaining on the episode about how, they're just such a negative band. The dude never has anything positive to say. And I was like, but in this regard, I completely agree. And it's something that I've talked about on my own show tons of times, just this idea that, like, just because it's old doesn't make it good. And just because it's new doesn't make it bad.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. Looks like Vincent was dealing with some traveling issues for his vacation to, I think, Portugal. So I didn't really see much other than him just bitching at Air America or something like that. But Tom's been a good sport about it. He had kind of fun with it. Actually, I think mostly the Acacia Strain dudes. I think it was Devin, their other guitar player. It was like, everyone's all up in arms over Tom and Vincent saying that that new metal sucks or whatever. Meanwhile, I'm over here and I like Creed. So who's the real villain?
Right. Yeah. There's always a bigger fish. There's always a bigger evil. I did think that was pretty brash, though. The whole new metal sucks. They like considering how, pretty recently people are really starting to embrace new metal again.
Well, I mean, only 3 groups ever did that.
Right. Well, yeah, ever. Yeah, right. It's so weird. I had this idea, John. I want to run it past you, okay? I was thinking, like, okay, rock, right? Like hard rock. We all love rock, right? But I think I'm going to add a little bit of, like, hip-hop to it.
Okay.
Like, is your mind blown as much as my mind is blown just thinking about that concept? I can't think of anybody that's ever done that.
I mean, I am a fan of Junko jeans and, growing up in a very suburban area, but wanting to get on my urban friends to join in on what I'm doing.
Oh man, I don't know how much I can keep that up, but I think I'm gonna steer off of that ship and get into my interview with The Wolves Are Closing In. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll talk to you guys in a minute. I have the pleasure this evening of speaking with 3 band members of The Wolves Are Closing In. How are you guys doing this evening?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Can't complain.
No point in it. Everybody usually just ignores you if you do, right?
Yep.
Or they roll their eyes. So you guys are a relatively new band. Give me a little bit of history, I guess, on how you guys got started and what the goal was.
So I guess I really started with me and Cameron. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Me and Hunter were in a band called Lethal Lava Land before, and I ended up quitting that project and joined the Navy. But over the course of my tour, me and Hunter kept in contact and showed each other riffs and stuff that we were working on while I was gone. And then when I got back, we kind of got together and started recording things. And then Jeremy was in another band that we kind of stole from.
No, I got kicked. It didn't work out.
Kind of, but he came in and just killed it.
Yeah, just the idea is, that like Cameron and I, when we were doing our old band, I know he always wanted to do something heavier, and I always kind of, wanted to try to do some heavier stuff, though it just was, with who we had at the band at the time, just, wasn't going to work out, so then, after a while, we just kind of sit, both of us were just kind of saving up our own like little heavy songs, and then I just kind of reached out to Cameron when he moved back, and it's like, hey, you want to, just to put all these songs together and start, doing some heavy stuff. It just all kind of fell together after that.
I guess that can be the hard part, right? Is like when you're telling somebody, hey, I want to do some heavy stuff, actually being able to define what you mean by heavy.
Oh yeah, right.
I think all of our definitions of heavy are different.
Oh, there they are. They're completely different.
Yeah, that can be rough because like I've definitely formed bands before and been like, yeah, I want to start a really aggressive band, and like dude shows up playing slap bass with a Korn shirt on, and you're like, oh, yeah, I meant like that's heavy, but it's not what I was thinking about.
Oh yeah, no, like Cameron and I, it's taken us like 10 years just to get like, to understand what each other means, when we're talking about like shredding or, technical or all that sort of stuff. I try to learn as much as I can. But yeah, we're still figuring it out.
So what got you guys into harder stuff? Like, let's say you're 15 years old in your bedroom, what are you listening to?
God, 15 years old? I don't know. Probably Sheryl Crow.
Spice Girls over here, man.
It's a little bit too brutal for our show.
I don't know. I definitely jumped on like the new metal train when it came through, and then after that, metalcore and hardcore. I started exploring into that a lot there too. Picked up on some pretty neat bands. That's when like I guess Christian core really kind of was taking over there the early 2000s or whatnot. So you had a lot of you had like Under Oath, you had Norma Jean, you had As I Lay Dying and stuff like that.
Yeah, we were just talking about As I Lay Dying off mic a little bit ago.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah, no, I've gone there way too many times on these shows, and I'm honestly just sick. Every time I hear the band name, I get a little bit sick. Not even because they're doing anything wrong. Like, their new songs have been bangers. It's just, I don't know. Just hearing about it every single day, 24/7, hitting that news feed. So, so you get into heavy music at a younger age. Like, is it one of those, like, played music since birth, or was it some kind of inspiration based on what you were listening to?
For me, like, heavy music definitely was the inspiration to get me to start playing.
I started doing vocals and being self-taught when I was 14 years old. And just kind of progressed and learned some techniques here and there, and yeah.
Nobody in my family likes heavy music at all. I took some music classes in school. I was in like a high school band and stuff like that. I played the oboe. So I mean, learned everything I did about music through there, and then I just picked up a guitar, midway through high school, and didn't ever want to look back.
You saying I've known you for like 10 years and never knew that you played the oboe?
A lot of people don't know I play the oboe.
Hey, learn something new every day.
I was waiting until this podcast came along so I could tell everybody about that. It's one of my best kept secrets. This
is the big reveal. So, like, for the full length that's coming, eventually, that's going to be a prominent instrument.
We're going to break out the oboe. Yeah, exactly. If Ian Anderson can bring a flute in the Jethro Tull, I'm going to bring a fucking oboe back into heavy music.
Absolutely. I mean, that's Grammy material right there.
Hell yeah.
Oh, very cool. So that's something that always intrigues me, and that's actually why I like talking to newer bands, because there's no such thing as a new band. You guys have all played in bands, prior to this. Anybody that's over the age of like 17 has already played in like 3 bands.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Jeremy has started like bands while we were in high school.
Yeah, Cameron and I, we started like 3 or 4 different projects when we were in high school, just writing and stuff like that. And then eventually he moved away, I moved away, and then kind of got right back at it later.
So in listening to your guys' to go forward, like 15 years, when you guys recorded your EP, would you consider an EP? I mean, 7 tracks, it's kind of on the line. Like it plays long enough for me to think of it as an album.
No, we always just called it an EP because it was under 30 minutes.
Quite honestly, at first we were actually talking about doing a full length, like a full set of like 10 to 12 tracks. But then we got to thinking, and we were like, A lot of the B-sides that we have for this don't.
fit in with
Yeah,
with this record. So
definitely the material is just a little bit different, and it's also unfinished.
Right. Yeah, the question I was wondering is just like, so you guys record. My understanding is you recorded this all pretty much on your own.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
We only had mixing done by somebody else. That's it.
Wow. So, and that's in a partially soundproofed studio space.
It's actually not soundproof at all. Everything that we did was direct in, so that's why you don't hear any echo off the wall.
I got you. Well, yeah. Well, I saw that video that you guys posted a while back. That you we're wearing the masks, which I'm going to ask about here in a minute. But you guys were wearing the masks and recording vocals, and I was like, how does it sound that good? Just straight in like that. I mean, I basically going straight into a MacBook Pro. It's
Plugins.
Yeah, they've come up with so many damn plugins now. It's insane.
right. No, that's awesome. But yeah, so the next question I have, and I have to. So what's the deal with the masks?
I mean, it's pretty much within the band name. The Wolves are closing in. Decided for at least our first EP that we just kind of wanted to put on a different persona to kind of introduce ourselves, to kind of give that little bit of attention, like, hey, we're here, So with the masks, it just kind of helped with that.
So it's not a like whenever you end up releasing like an actual physical product, it's going to have your names printed in it. It's not going to be like this is a total secrecy.
No, definitely not. I mean,
we're not wearing the mask for this.
Yeah,
we're not trying to hide. It was just something cool to do.
For shows and stuff like that, when we get show ready and stuff, because right now we're not. We just got done writing this EP. But I mean, we figured, we'll wear the mask a little bit here and there, but it's not something that's going to be like a permanent thing that we're going to be wearing all the time.
Well, and they were prominently featured in your guys' music video for your song, "The Snot End of My Tommy Gun."
that was his title. I like that. Yeah.
Well, really, like the whole music video concept came from like Cameron just had this idea of an intro for the intro of the music video, and he told me about that, and so I was like, all right, we can translate that into a full music video, I think.
Well, and they were telling me a little bit before we went on, about, I was like, did you guys hire actors? And my understanding is you guys happen to have friends that were actors.
I mean, we bought them food.
No, we had a whole production and everything like that. No, the actors were out of our local community theater college. Their theater department happened to get to know some of them, earlier in the year, and I was asked them if they were interested in performing in some film or some music videos, and everything just kind of came together, and that project went pretty smoothly, I'd say.
They were like, wait, there's food there?
It was pretty exhausting though, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my question would be, when you're going through a list of people and you're like, who can I pick that would play the perfect psychopath?
I think we lucked out really with that. That guy, his name is Micah. Yeah, no, he was just an actor. He was an improv comedian, is what he was. He hangs out with like this local improv troupe, and then he just joined in. Like he's also like a really good singer, actually. Does a lot of choir. He's actually starting up his own little acoustic project right now under the name Johnny Ponderosa. I'm going to throw him a little nod there. But yeah, he had the right look. So we brought him in, and we had no idea how. I had no idea, how good he would be about it, though. But we just kind of let him go. We just ran these scenes out. There's scenes where he's sitting there brushing her hair and stuff like that. That was actually like a 4-minute shot that we got there. And he was just improvising too, he was like quoting like Bible verses to her, and she's sitting there screaming. I didn't know when to cut. I was just like, this is great. He's so creepy. I can't use all of this, but I'm just going to use like a sliver of this, but this is great. After the shoot, like, Micah, did anybody ever tell you how creepy you are?
Did you guys sit down and write the script together, or was it something that just kind of came together on its own based on a concept? Or
Hunter,
both.
Yeah,
Cameron came up with the intro. Like, he started that whole intro scene before the song kicks in was all Cameron's idea. Then I kind of like tried to figure out where to take it for the end, though. I know, Jared wanted a coffin, a burial scene involved in the video, and so because he had access to one, and then so I kind of took all these things that we had accessibility to, and try to create a some loose story to it. So yeah.
So a death metal influenced band with access to a coffin.
Funny story. My stepsister, her brother works at a funeral home, and they accidentally put a wrong body in that coffin.
Oh no!
So by law, you're not allowed to use it again after that. So he left it at her house, and when I saw it, I instantly was just like, "Holy shit! I have to have this." And then
free coffin. Yeah.
Yeah,
real coffin,
the guys about it.
Used coffin. That's I love that.
And I told the story to Hunter and Cameron, and they're like, "Is that even a question?" Yeah, let's do it. So,
well, we had to tell our actress, it's a real coffin. I told her ahead of time, just so she wasn't going to get too freaked out about that. I don't know.
She didn't find out till like right before she got in it that there was already a body in it.
I gave her more of a heads up. What I told her is, and to be fair, we'll all take a turn getting into the coffin before you get in. Just if that makes it any better. So nothing will come out and bite you, or
We'll spray some Febreze in there. It'll be fine.
I think we did. Actually.
Yeah, we did, because it smelled like fucking death.
Yeah.
Like, it was.
That weird thing that smells more than death, because it's like a mixture of corpse and formaldehyde, which is actually more disgusting.
That's weird smell. Yeah. No, we took a photo shoot actually in the coffin. We had some pictures that we did release those pictures.
Yeah, we released our promo pictures right before we dropped the music video.
Yeah, all those pictures of us are in the coffin. Yeah.
So when you do your first tour, like somebody has to come out of the coffin, right? Like on the stage.
Dude, that's not an idea.
That would be cool if we did go on tour. Yeah.
I'll take 1% of all proceeds for the idea. No. That's what we try to do. That's what we try to do here on the podcast, is just launch as many ideas as we can. But no, it was definitely a fun video. I mean, depending on what your definition of fun is, but no, that was something that kind of struck me though when I was watching it, and I was just kind of like, I had trouble believing that it was an independent band, just because of the production quality on the video, and especially on the recording. So, is that gonna kind of be your guys' way in the future, or like would you pretty much just jump at the opportunity to go into a studio?
If it was paid for, I would go and but at the same time, like, I kind of want to have my own studio and learn how to do this stuff myself. Just like as a hobby, maybe I could do this for other bands too. So
I definitely think doing it ourselves, that gives us a
I
way.
think it definitely allows us, to get down to ideas while they're fresh.
What was that?
I like having that. I like having the access to it. But I'm always, I always like to, keep my options open, and always like to explore new methods and new ways of capturing music and stuff like that, or video or anything. So I'm kind of sitting on the fence with that one.
Gotcha. Now, you'd mentioned earlier that you guys weren't quite show ready yet because you put so much time into the recording. Have you guys played as the Wolves Are Closing In before, or is this just kind of like we're going to come in and have all of our shit together before, like, debuting in a live setting?
We're definitely gonna get all of our shit together, make sure everything is fine-tuned, make sure that we have merch, make sure we have everything set to go before we decide to step on stage. So
gotcha. Okay. What are you guys thinking as far as after this? Are you going to try to go like immediately out on the road, or is it going to be just kind of try to establish something local? Because it's so much easier now to establish yourself online. A lot of the bands I've seen before that like never even played in their hometown, they just go right on tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Pretty much that. Really.
Y'all have like very separate lives, so it's kind of hard to like drop everything we're doing and leave. So like playing locally is good, and then having an online presence.
Yeah, but never say never. You know, I mean, if the opportunity presents itself and we can all do it, no, we'll definitely get. You know, if we definitely, I'd love to go on a dinner.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's pretty much if that bridge is presented in front of us, you know, well, that's when we sit down and discuss it and just kind of go from there. But I definitely think that local for now would be in our best interests. And then we've also talked about even going from like, you know, to a state out of state just to play one show, you know, here and there, just to kind of give us, you know, a little more of exposure, I suppose.
Gotcha. Well, I noticed on your song "Taking a Shit While Spotting Waldo," which again is an amazing song title, you guys had Jacob Wallace on to do a guest spot on that. So tell me a little bit about how that came about.
Jacob Wallace. Well, I stumbled upon Bro Job last year at some point, and first of all, their lyrics are just outrageous,
incredible.
Yeah, they're incredible. And when I heard Jacob's voice, I was just like, "Oh my god, this guy is a god!" I it just blew my mind. But the thing that stuck out the most about these guys is they're kind of these guys that just they're doing it to not be so serious. They want to have fun, you know. And for me personally, that's how I am. I showed Cameron and I showed Hunter, and then when we came up with Waldo, there was a section that we just couldn't figure out what to put in there. And I was thinking, well, what if we get a guest vocalist? So we had a couple guest vocalists in mind, and I was like, I wonder, just maybe it'd be, you know, a long shot, but I wonder if Jacob Wallace would be down to do it. So I actually literally just messaged him on Facebook, and he messaged me right back, and we got to talking, and, you know, I mustered up the courage to ask him, and he was like, yeah, just send me what you guys got, and I'll listen to it, and I'll get back to you. He listened to it, and he said that it shows great promise, and he said that he'd be willing to do it, so it was pretty awesome.
Dude, you could start a podcast. That's how we do it. You know, like 100%. You reach out to 1,000 people. You hope 10 of them respond back to you. You know, and no, that's really cool. Because that was one of the first things that I noticed, and you know, you guys popped up immediately on the digital streaming service that I used when I was looking for new releases, and for being such a new band, you know, what was your guys' reaction to launching onto, like, because I guess you guys are on it's on Apple Music. I use Google Play Music. That's where I found it, and then you know, Spotify and all that. Was that just like you fill out an application, you get on all of them, or?
We went through DistroKid, and just, you know, to explain real quick, just in case people that aren't familiar with DistroKid, I mean, it's pretty much a distributing service. You know, you go on there, you pay $20 a year, you put the tracks that you want to release out, and pretty much pick the platforms that you want to release it to. And pretty much they just release it. It's that easy.
Very cool. I know a lot of one of the biggest complaints I hear from newer bands is they'll release something and it'll just kind of sit there and stagnate on the service. And that was what I found so interesting, is I must have caught it like right whenever it launched, like because normally, you know, it's so hard, especially for like podcasts, to throw that other side of it. It's like how to get onto the new release schedule to where like you'd show up on the main page or something like that. So I think that was a huge benefit to you guys to be on that, even if it was only for a couple of minutes or something in the new release. I think it probably got you guys out to a lot of people relatively quickly. So for $20 a year, you can't beat that. So if you guys had one experience or one feeling that you would want a listener to get out of your EP, what would it be? Not necessarily a message, because not all music has to have a message to be good, you know, but just like, what is this, like a personal, you know, I noticed the lyrics are very personal. That's one thing that stood out to me. It's like funny track titles, but then like you get into the lyrics and it's like, oh, okay, this is not a party environment.
It's a does not play well with others. This is a bad neighborhood environment.
You're going to probably be in a coffin that smells a little bit like Febreze.
There's definitely a lot of anger that was put into it. There was a lot of raw emotion. I'd say there's a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah. What do we want listeners to feel? I don't know. It's hard to say, like, since we put all that into it, maybe like relatable. Because I know I look for that a lot in bands that I'm getting into and stuff. So
yeah, I agree.
I kind of have to agree with both what they say.
It's a hard question to answer. I just like watching people squirm whenever I ask it. But they're like, I don't know, man. I recorded it and put it out. Like, what do you want?
Well, pretty much, we want people to listen to what we've put out there and just be like, those guys right there, they know what I'm going through. I'm not the only one going through this kind of shit.
yeah, a lot of people, especially over here, like, they have a hard time or don't like talking about like depression and anger and stuff like that. People are scared by it, and I was just like, why don't we just say it on the record? Like, why not?
It's actually, a great load that gets off your chest too when you do, when you get to express yourself. So,
right. It's like, why are these guys smiling after the show? I don't. It seems so angry up on stage.
it's therapeutic. That's what it is.
So obviously we're gonna have links to all your socials and everything on the show notes whenever the episode posts. But where can people find The Wolves Are Closing In online?
We have Facebook. We have Instagram. We did have a Twitter at one time, but I think that kind of just went to shit because we didn't keep up on it.
Yeah,
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I almost really like Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter.
We have a Snapchat.
Yeah, we have a Snapchat. We just haven't used it in a while.
Oh, very cool. I haven't heard that in a while. Snapchat.
Yeah. And then, of course, our email, thewolvesareclosinginband @gmail.com.
Perfect. That's the only one that I was like, I don't have to do any research if he just tells me.
All right, hey guys, they're calling me back here, so I gotta drop out of the call here. So,
alrighty. Well, I'm about to finish up anyway, so you're good.
alrighty.
It's good talking to you.
It was good chatting with you. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yep. Anytime.
I'll see you later, you beautiful bearded mother flipper.
I miss you. Love you, Jer Bear.
Miss
Bye.
you. Love you too. If you ever call me that again, I'm gonna cut your genitalia off.
He's gone. He missed it. Oh man, I can't believe that worked. Okay.
Right.
All right. Now that he's gone, let's start the real interview back over again. No.
Can we keep this? Can this part not be edited out? Just
Yeah. Sure. Right.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. You hear that, John? Yeah. So.
Hunter, we love you.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Yeah. So I'll just finish up real quick and with all the socials and stuff. I'm trying to think if there was any other questions that I had. It's one of those things where I ask a lot of generic questions because it's like nobody knows anything about the band. Like not like in an offensive sort of way, but you know what I mean? Like, so it's like you always kind of wonder when people are hearing a new band for the first time. People are so fickle. So the question is always like, what can we say and what can we talk about in an interview that it will make people listen beyond the first 10 seconds of a song that they streamed?
I mean, I know each individual song itself, it's quite different than the next, I guess. And lyrically, like we said before, there's a lot of raw emotion. Each individual song touches, or I guess sheds light, rather, on certain situations that have happened to either us or somebody else.
I'm trying to... Let me pull up the exact... Unless you guys know it off the top of your head, the exact release date of the EP was... Of course, it just says 2019 on my app here.
April 15th, I believe was. We released kind of like an early release, April 13th, to a couple platforms just because it happened that way. But we didn't really tell anybody about it until about April 15th.
Gotcha. Okay. So, all right. The Wolves Are Closing In's debut EP, which is titled Eulogy for Desecrated Souls, was released on April 15th of this year. They're a band that you definitely want to jump on. Definitely had a great chat with these guys, and I appreciate you guys taking your time out to chat with me tonight.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Anytime.
Are you wearing a Venom shirt that's actually a Beyonce shirt? Yes. Okay. Sorry, it's bothering me. But yeah, and that was my interview with the members of The Wolves Are Closing In. What'd you think, John, about all the coffin talk? Apparently they need a Febreze and a coffin sponsorship to get some of the smell of death out of the out of those things. I will say, as I was telling you off microphone, I misheard it initially when I was kind of editing this episode, and I totally thought he was saying like, "So fun story, like my friend's sister, my sister's friend died." And then I was like, "What the fuck? That's not funny." Like that you you used like a used coffin, and then
Right.
then I was like, "Oh wait, never mind. I misheard. Like their friend's friend or whatever works at a funeral parlor." So I was like, "Okay, like that is a little bit more like, oh, that's funny."
Well, what's a used coffin? I mean, like, don't you just use it? You just use it once, right?
Yeah, it's a one-time use. There's no return, no refund
Yeah.
policy. But that was the thing, and that's what kind of caught me off guard. Is I was like, "What the fuck? Someone reused a coffin?"
It's the most brutal thing I've ever heard.
I wanna open a used coffin store as a joke. Like that sounds like it'd be good on Impractical Jokers or something. It reminds me of that Tom Green skit where he would follow pizza delivery people and then would show up with a blank pizza and then would open a tackle box with all the toppings.
Right. Right.
Just- I don't know.
Oh, it's too funny. But no, we had a good time. I thought it was really funny that they were in a band before this called Lethal Lava Land,
Yeah.
which is Super Mario Brothers, or like it's from Super Mario 64. It's the only lava level I think in that game. But I just thought that was really funny because I was like, so like, was this a band that was playing like deathcore, but like everything was about Mario Brothers? Because that almost like I kind of latched onto that because I was like, this almost seems like let's dig into that a little deeper.
Well,
But,
it kind of reminded me of that scene, like the quote unquote Nintendo core of like Sky Eats Airplanes and stuff like that. Like that used a lot of
Horse
like
the band.
yeah, like used a lot of like 8-bit sounds and so forth. So I mean, it was funny. The other thing I thought of when they said that band name is I was thinking of the movie Lavalantulas.
Oh yeah.
Which goes to show how terrible my B horror, or probably even like F or Z level horror movies go sometimes.
Hey man, if it's not Z level, I don't care. Those what's interesting too is like speaking on the horror movies is like that I really latched onto their video because I thought it was one of the better like I miss music videos that have storylines.
Right.
And so I thought that was really cool to see an independent band put out a video like that. Whereas, bands that are on like major labels, like their videos are usually like clips of them playing live on their most recent tour. And it's like, yeah, it's cool. Like, but if I already saw that band on tour, like in the video, like, I don't know, I like music that tells stories. And I think that's sadly something that is kind of missing from a lot of music promotion nowadays is just the idea of music as the art form more so than music as you just got to sell it. We just got to figure out ways to make money off of it. Just whatever we can do. So like we want to cut together tour videos to encourage people to go see the band on tour. Like I don't know. I thought this video was kind of refreshing, and because I'm into horror movies like that, just seeing a video about a psychopath, and then like the band members are in it, but they're like they're basically just wearing wolf masks. It's very interesting.
Makes me wonder, they kind of had made the comment about how they're not necessarily going to be wearing the masks at all times and so forth, and potentially not when they're performing. So it does kind of make me wonder, you come out the gate with like your first video, and the first visual representation people are going to have of your band is with a mask. Are people going to kind of be like, yo, this is sick? Or does it kind of start like... Because it's kind of weird, like, we just had Patrick from Ice Nine Kills, and, like, they do a lot of the various horror tropes of, dressing up as various characters. The videos, especially on this last record, are all from, themed around specific movies, and so the videos correlate to that. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, does it go into the fun, campy vibe of, like, what, Ice Nine Kills has done, or is it trying to be more... and you kind of touched on this, but didn't necessarily mention these guys, but like, is it going to be more of like a Slipknot or even like a Mushroom Head, where it's like, you're not going to know who these people really are. They're going to use stage names or whatever, so you don't know the real names initially, to kind of more focus it on the art of the music and this concept maybe, or the themes of what they're expressing in their music. And if so, will fans be ready for that, or are they going to be like, oh, another masked band? Okay.
Well, I think that he cleared that up pretty well in the interview, that like we're going to do it sometimes, like maybe as like a visual thing, but like, we've seen the tail end of that like when we talked to Skinny from Mushroomhead, and him talking about like, you know, the just how elaborate the costumes are, and that's what fans expect, and then they feel like they always have to change up the costumes. Like, I feel like if they dedicate to the wolf mask thing totally, then they're always going to be trapped in that, like always having to find ways to reinvent that and make it interesting. Like Slipknot, you know, they change their masks a lot. Mushroomhead changes their masks a lot. So it's one of those things where it's like, do we really want to spend all of our time and effort with this? Or so I feel like they just kind of throw that on as like kind of like just a garnish, you know, but not really the main attraction. Because I remember asking, like, you know, if you have physical media, are you going to have your names printed? And he's like, oh yeah.
Right. But it's still one of those, like, it's so, like, the band hasn't played, so it's like maybe when they play, they kind of realize after getting a couple of shows under their belt, like, oh, I think it'd be kind of cooler if we, you know, again, going back to Ice Nine Kills, because I just saw them, you know, Patrick comes out in this huge fucking rat mask thing, or pig mask or whatever, and plays the initial part of the set, probably like 2 or 3 songs, and then when there's a break in the set, he pulls off that mask, and then there's like another layer of makeup and, you know, like a carved 9 into his forehead and all that kind of stuff. And
Right.
so it's one of those where it's like, I could even see maybe trying to do something like that, where it's like we start off, you know, the show, and we're, you know, in these masks, and then, you know, something, I don't know. There's a lot of avenues that can go with it, and it just kind of, you know, I guess that was kind of like what I was alluding to earlier, where it's like, oh, it would be kind of interesting to see how much playing live is going to change stuff for them. Because at this point they haven't played out live, they haven't toured yet. So I think there's a lot of the aspects of being a band and the things that you realize do or don't work for you, or what you want to accomplish in the vision of your band, I think will kind of fall into place once more they get some more stage time under their belt.
Yeah, and that was definitely, you know, my entire angle for doing the interview and reaching out to him. Is it's one of those things where I feel like this band can do it. And so I kind of want to be in on the ground floor for it and just kind of see where they go with their career, what they end up working with. You know, it's funny if we do this interview, you know, so early on, and then they end up becoming like one of the bigger masked bands out there, or whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's funny because they hadn't fully committed to that whenever I talked to them, you know, back in 19 or whatever, you know.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to, you know, you had kind of said on the Patrick from Ice Nine Kills thing, where we had kind of said, like, you know, this feels like it's the epicenter of something happening, and where in the next, you know, 5 years or so is this going to take this band with all the momentum that they're building up. I think, you know, very much the same thing with these guys. I'm interested to see if this is the beginning of something. In a couple of years, we're going to see, like, wow, these guys really, like, kind of came out of nowhere, took the, you know, heavy metal music scene by storm, and kind of, you know, were at the epicenter of it, like Earthgroans. Like, I was one of the first interviews that Jeremy from Earthgroans did. Now you see them touring constantly with bands like O Sleeper and Obey the Brave and a lot of these other bands. So it's like, it's interesting to me to see how big that band has gotten over the last couple of years since doing the podcast, when they were a relatively unknown band at the time.
Yeah, agreed. And that's definitely was part of my whole angle. And that's something that, you know, John and I don't really have defined roles on the show. I mean, we kind of do, in that, like, John does everything and I just freeload, which is the way I like it most of the time. But, you know, one of the biggest things is that, you know, for me, I've always been kind of the bigger underground music fan, whereas John has always not that John sits there and listens to pop music. Actually, I'm kidding. He totally does all the time.
I do.
But, you know, getting out there and being able to meet up with bands on tour and do things like that, whereas my interview potential is somewhat more limited. That's why I just try to kind of reach out to bands that maybe people haven't heard of, or bands that I personally like that, you know, that I feel like maybe need a little bit more exposure than what they're getting. So, you know, every now and again we'll throw an interview out like that with a band that, you know, you should definitely check out. And hopefully enough people stick around to actually do that, and we end up having them back on the show. It's like, hey man, how have things changed in the past year, you know?
Right. Speaking of all the exposure and stuff like that, where can people find the band?
Well, you can find them on Facebook, under facebook.com/thewolvesareclosinginband. And you can email them at thewolvesareclosinginband@gmail.com. They do not use Twitter, as we had discussed in the interview. You can also follow them on Instagram at thewolvesareclosinginofficial.
And if you would like to follow Metal Nexus, you can find them at metalnexus.net, Facebook at Metal Nexus, Instagram at metal.nexus, and Twitter at metal_nexus. And Dan, where can people find you?
You can find me pretty much anywhere. You can find me on Facebook under Daniel Terry. You can find me on Twitter at Discuss Metal Dan. You can find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, at discussmetal.com. And you can email me at danandjoeshow@gmail.com.
And if you would like to keep up with all things this podcast, you can find us everywhere at BrewSpeakPod. Email us at BrewtallySpeaking@gmail.com. And for the Brewtally Speaking Podcast, I am John.
And I am Dan.
We will talk to you all next time.